6 weeks after Andre Colvin took the house, the car, and custody of both children, Mary used her last $300 to set up a folding table on Moreland Avenue and sell plates from her grandmother's recipe book. 11 months later, she stood before a national television camera. Andre was watching. He was not ready for what he saw. 5 a.m., hot oil and cold air. Mary stood behind that table with a wooden spoon and a faded notebook of recipes. She had not planned to sell food. She cooked because it was the only thing her hands knew. Mary grew up on Delary Street in the lower 9th Ward of New Orleans, in a house that smelled like smoked paprika and brown butter, and something sweet underneath that she could never name but would recognize anywhere for the rest of her life. The house belonged to her grandmother, Opal May Johnson, born 1941, lived in that same house for 52 years, cooked in that same kitchen every single day. Opal cooked for the neighbors. She cooked for the church. She cooked for anyone who showed up at the screen door looking like they had not eaten enough that day. She never asked for money. She never turned anyone away. On Sundays, she made enough food for 30 people and put it out on the porch table, and whoever came, came. She had a recipe book, brown leather cover soft from years of hands on it. Every page written in blue ink in Opal's careful script. 214 pages. 31 years of cooking recorded one dish at a time. Notes in the margins. Adjustments. Reminders. More salt at the end. Do not rush the roux. Let the fire do its work. Mary was beside her in that kitchen from the time she could stand on a stool and reach the counter. 5 years old, holding a wooden spoon that was too big for her hand. Opal did not give her small tasks to keep her busy. She gave her real ones. Stir this. Taste that. Tell me what is missing. By the time Mary was 10, she could make gumbo from memory. By 12, she was cooking for the Sunday porch table on her own while Opal sat in the chair by the window and watched. Opal taught Mary how to cook. But she also taught her something else. Something that had nothing to do with seasoning or temperature or timing. You feed people and you look them in the eye. That is how you tell someone they matter. Mary heard that sentence more times than she could count. She heard it when she was 7, and again when she was 17, and again the last morning she spent in that kitchen before she left New Orleans for good. Mary left at 22, moved to Atlanta, a job at a hotel restaurant on Peachtree Street, entry level, long hours. She did not mind. The morning she left, Opal put 2 things in her hands: the recipe book and a photograph tucked inside the front cover. Opal standing in front of the Delary Street kitchen, 1989, 48 years old, white apron, hands dusted with flour, smiling like she knew something nobody else knew yet. Mary carried both for 16 years. The recipe book stayed on the kitchen shelf in every apartment she lived in. She opened it often in the beginning, then less. Then not at all after Opal got sick. Opal May Johnson died on a Tuesday morning in March, 4 years before this story begins. 81 years old. In the same house on Delary Street. In the bed 12 feet from the kitchen, where she had fed half a neighborhood for 3 decades. Mary flew home for the funeral. She sat in that kitchen for 2 hours after everyone left. She did not cook. She did not open the recipe book. She sat at the table and looked at the stove and the counter and the wooden spoon still hanging from the hook by the window. She flew back to Atlanta the next day. She put the recipe book on the shelf in her kitchen. She did not open it again. Not once in 4 years. Not once until the night everything else was gone. She did not know it yet. She did not know that the recipes in that book and the photograph tucked inside the cover and the smell of that kitchen would become the only things that mattered. She would find out. But not yet. Mary met Andre Colvin when she was 25 years old. He was 28, commercial loan officer at a bank in Buckhead. He wore good suits, and he listened when she talked, and he remembered things she said 3 conversations ago. He had a plan for everything. That was what she noticed first. Andre always had a plan. They married when Mary was 27. Small ceremony, 40 guests. Mary cooked the reception dinner herself because she wanted to, and because Andre said it would be more personal that way. He was right. It was personal. It was also the beginning of something she would not see clearly for 12 years. They had 2 children, Elijah, born when Mary was 29, Naomi, born when Mary was 32. Mary stopped working at the hotel restaurant when Elijah was born. Andre suggested it. "You do not need to work. I have got us covered." She agreed. It made sense. Childcare cost more than she earned. Andre made enough. She would stay home and raise the children and manage the house and cook. 2 years later, Andre suggested he handle the finances. "You focus on the kids. I will take care of the accounts." She agreed. It made sense. Andre understood money. He worked with numbers every day. She trusted him. There was no reason not to. 3 years after that, Andre said the house should be in his name for the mortgage. Just a technicality. The loan terms are better with one borrower. She signed. She did not read every page. She did not ask questions. That is what you do when you trust someone. You sign, you move on, you cook dinner. Andre was good at one thing above all others. He controlled the picture. In front of friends, he was the attentive husband. In front of his bank colleagues, he was the provider. In front of the children, he was the father who planned family vacations and coached Saturday basketball. Mary cooked for every dinner party Andre hosted. She made the food that his colleagues talked about for weeks. She set the table. She cleaned up after. Andre introduced her as my wife, and the food appeared as though it arrived on its own. He never once said Mary made this. He said we put together a little spread or the food turned out great and moved the conversation to the next topic. Every connection Andre built in Atlanta ran through a meal Mary cooked. Every client dinner, every holiday gathering, every Sunday when Andre invited a colleague and his family over for what he called a casual thing that required Mary to spend 6 hours in the kitchen, her hands built the foundation of his professional life. Her name was on none of it. Not on the bank accounts, not on the mortgage, not on the investment portfolio, not on the car title, not on the credit cards. 12 years of cooking and cleaning and raising 2 children and hosting every dinner and managing every household detail in her name did not appear on a single document that mattered. She did not notice. That is the thing about control when it is done slowly. You do not feel the ground moving. You just wake up one day and the ground is somewhere else and you are standing on nothing. Andre started planning the divorce 14 months before Mary knew anything was wrong. He hired Glenn Forsyth, 53 years old, family asset attorney, office on Roswell Road in Sandy Springs. Forsyth did not handle emotions. He handled structures. Andre did not need a therapist. He needed an architect. In March of the year, before the papers were served, Forsyth restructured the mortgage. The house on Collier Road in northwest Atlanta, the house Mary had lived in for 11 years, went through a refinancing that transferred the deed into Andre's name only. Andre brought the papers home on a Wednesday evening. He put them on the kitchen counter while Mary was cooking. He said the bank offered a better interest rate. He said it would save them $400 a month. He said she just needed to sign the last 2 pages. She signed. She remembered the pen in her hand. She did not remember anyone explaining what she was signing away. In June, Forsyth moved the joint savings account. $41,000 transferred to an individual account in Andre's name at a different branch. The statements stopped coming to the house. Mary did not notice because she had not looked at a bank statement in 6 years. Andre handled the finances. That was the agreement. In September, the investment account was locked into a trust naming Andre as sole beneficiary. In November, the car title was updated. Andre's name only. In January, the credit cards in Mary's name were closed. Andre told her there had been fraud on the account and the bank issued new cards. The new cards came in his name. Mary never saw them. 14 months, 7 documents. Every one of them signed or processed while Mary cooked dinner and helped Elijah with homework and drove Naomi to dance class and trusted the man she had built a life beside for 12 years. The papers arrived on a Thursday afternoon in April. Mary was standing in the kitchen. She had just turned the stove off. She was holding a dish towel. Andre set the envelope on the counter between the salt shaker and a bowl of rice. She opened it. She read the first page. She did not sit down. She stood and read every page through to the end. 23 pages. Then she set them on the counter exactly where Andre had placed the envelope. She did not say anything. Andre was standing in the doorway. He had been watching her read. She looked at him. He looked at her. Neither of them spoke. The hearing took 6 weeks. Andre's legal team moved fast because they had been moving for 14 months already. Forsyth filed for primary custody. The argument was simple. Mary had no income. Mary had no individual bank account. Mary had no employment history for 10 years. Mary had no assets in her name. Mary had no credit history. On paper, Mary did not exist. Forsyth presented financial records showing Andre as the sole provider. He presented the mortgage in Andre's name. He presented the bank accounts in Andre's name. He presented a stable home environment with 2 bedrooms for the children and a father with a salary of $147,000 a year. The judge granted Andre temporary primary custody of Elijah and Naomi pending final divorce proceedings. Temporary. But the word did not feel temporary to Mary. The word felt like a door closing. She packed 1 suitcase. She took her clothes. She took the recipe book from the shelf. She took the photograph tucked inside the front cover. There was $300 left in an old checking account that neither Andre nor Forsyth had found. A joint account from the first year of their marriage that Mary had forgotten about and Andre had never bothered to close. $300. The one thing they missed. She walked out of the house on Collier Road on a Friday morning. 11 years in that house. The stove she had cooked 10,000 meals on. The counter where she rolled dough with Naomi on Saturday mornings. The kitchen table where Elijah did his homework every night while she cooked beside him. She did not cry. She packed. Denise Okafor pulled up at 10:15 in the morning. A blue sedan, engine running. Denise did not get out. She did not need to. Mary put the suitcase in the back seat. She got in. She closed the door. Denise pulled away from the curb. Mary did not look back at the house. She looked at the recipe book in her lap. Brown leather cover. Blue ink inside, 214 pages. A photograph of a woman in a white apron smiling like she knew something nobody else knew yet. $300 to her name. No house, no car, no children beside her, no credit, no employment history, no account with her name on it. He took the house, he took the car, he took the children. He took 12 years of her hands in that kitchen and made them disappear from every document that existed. He left her with $300 and a recipe book. He thought he left her with nothing. Denise Okafor lived in a 2-bedroom apartment on Glenwood Avenue in East Atlanta. She was 39 years old, night shift nurse at Grady Memorial. She worked 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., 4 nights a week, and came home to a quiet apartment that smelled like coffee she had brewed 12 hours earlier. Mary slept on the sofa. A blanket Denise pulled from the hall closet. A pillow from the spare room that Denise used for storage. $300 in an envelope inside her bag. The first 3 days, Mary did not leave the apartment. She did not eat much. She sat by the window in the living room and looked out at the parking lot and the street beyond it and the people walking to places they needed to be. Her phone had 2 messages from Elijah. The first one said, "Mom, when are you coming back?" The second one said, "Naomi keeps asking." Mary read both messages. She did not reply. She did not know what to say. She could not tell her son she was coming back because she did not know if that was true. She could not tell him she was fine because she was sitting on a borrowed sofa with $300 and no answer to give. She put the phone face down on the cushion. 3 days of nothing. 3 days of sitting and not calling and not eating enough and not knowing what the next thing was supposed to be. The 4th night, Mary could not sleep. Denise was at work. The apartment was dark. Mary lay on the sofa and stared at the ceiling and listened to the sound of a car passing on Glenwood Avenue and then silence again. She sat up. She reached into her bag on the floor beside the sofa. She pulled out the recipe book. She had not opened it in 4 years. Not since the funeral. Not since she sat in Opal's kitchen on Delary Street and looked at the stove and the counter and the wooden spoon and decided she could not open this book without hearing her grandmother's voice inside it. She opened it. The photograph fell out of the front cover and landed on her lap. Opal May Johnson, 1989, white apron, flower on her hands, smiling like she knew something nobody else knew yet. Mary held the photograph for a long time. She did not move. She did not make a sound. Then she turned to the first page. Opal's handwriting, blue ink, careful letters. The recipe for red beans and rice. In the margin, a note in smaller script. Do not rush the roux. Let the fire do its work. She turned another page. Fried catfish. A note beside the measurements. More salt at the end. Always at the end. She turned another page. Smothered chicken. A note at the bottom. This one is for when someone needs to feel better and does not know how to ask. Every page had a note. Every note sounded like Opal was standing beside her in that dark apartment, talking to her the way she always had. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, just there. Mary closed the book. She held it against her chest. She sat on that sofa in the dark for a while longer. The next morning, she got up before Denise came home. She went into the kitchen. She opened the recipe book on the counter. She turned to page 14. She started cooking. When Denise opened the front door at 7:15 a.m., the apartment smelled like smoked paprika and brown butter and something sweet underneath. The same smell, the same one from the kitchen on Delary Street, the same one Mary had carried in her memory for 37 years. Denise stood in the doorway. Mary stood at the stove. They looked at each other. Neither of them said much. I need to find somewhere to sell this, Mary said. I know a Saturday market, Denise said. Mary divided the $300 on the kitchen table that afternoon. $85 for the food handler's permit and a temporary vendor license from Fulton County. $140 for ingredients, $40 for containers and foil trays and plastic forks. $35 left over, a buffer that would not buffer much. She took the number 14 bus to the Fulton County Health Department on a Tuesday morning, stood in line for 2 hours, paid $85, received a card and a permit number and a sheet of paper listing what she was and was not allowed to do. She bought ingredients at the discount grocery on Memorial Drive. Chicken, rice, beans, spices, oil, foil trays from the restaurant supply store on Moreland, 40 containers, plastic forks, paper napkins. Saturday morning, 5:45 a.m. Mary carried 2 large pots and a folding table borrowed from Greater Hope Baptist Church onto the number 21 bus. She rode 9 stops to the East Atlanta Village Community Market on Flat Shoals Avenue. She set up at the far end of the row between a woman selling candles and a man selling wooden cutting boards. The other vendors had banners. They had canopies. They had branded signs and tablecloths and business cards in little holders. Mary had a folding table and 2 pots and 40 foil containers and a piece of cardboard with her prices written in marker. 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. She sold 4 containers. People walked past. They looked. Some slowed down. Most kept walking. Mary stood behind the table and did not call out to anyone. She did not wave people over. She stood and waited. At 11:40, a woman stopped. Mid-50s, church hat. She bought 1 container. She opened it right there at the table. She ate, standing up. She did not say anything for a minute. Then she looked at Mary. This tastes like my grandmother's cooking, she said. She bought 3 more containers. She asked Mary her name. She asked if Mary would be here next Saturday. Mary said yes. By 2 p.m., Mary had sold 19 containers at $5 each, $95, minus the $48 she spent on ingredients and supplies for the day. $47 in her hand on the number 21 bus back to Glenwood Avenue. $47. Not enough for rent, not enough for a deposit, not enough for anything except ingredients for next Saturday. But a woman had come back for seconds. That was the only number that mattered. Week 2, 28 containers. Week 3, 35. Week 4, 40 containers. Sold out before 1 p.m. The numbers did not jump. They climbed. Slowly and without stopping. There was a problem. Mary was cooking in Denise's kitchen. Under Georgia cottage food law, a home kitchen could be used to prepare certain foods for direct sale. But the law had limits. Baked goods and certain shelf-stable items were permitted. Prepared meals with meat and rice and perishable ingredients sold at public markets required a licensed commercial kitchen. Mary had been selling for 4 weeks. She was in violation of the health code, and she did not know it. She found out at the public library on Ponce de Leon Avenue. She did not have a laptop. She did not have internet at the apartment. She sat at a library computer for 3 hours on a Wednesday afternoon and read the Georgia Department of Agriculture cottage food regulations line by line. Licensed commercial kitchen. Inspected, certified, available for hourly rental at shared kitchen facilities across Atlanta. She searched for pricing. $15 to $25 an hour depending on location. She did the math on the back of a receipt. 4 hours of cooking per week at $15 an hour. $60. She needed to sell at least 25 containers a week just to cover the kitchen rental before ingredients and bus fare and supplies. A food truck would solve the mobility problem. She could cook and sell from the same vehicle. She could go where the customers were. Instead of waiting at one market on one day, she searched for used food trucks. $20,000 to $40,000 for a truck that ran. She closed that browser tab. She did not have $20,000. She had $47 a week. So she did what she could. She registered for 3 markets instead of 1. Tuesday evenings at the Grant Park Farmers Market. Thursday afternoons at the Kirkwood Community Market. Saturday mornings at East Atlanta Village. 3 markets. 3 bus rides with 2 pots and a folding table, and a rolling cart she bought for $12 at a thrift store on Memorial Drive. This was not a food truck dream. This was a woman pulling a cart onto a city bus at 5:30 in the morning to sell 40 containers of food cooked in a kitchen she could not legally use. That was the reality. While Mary pulled that cart across 3 bus routes, Andre sat in his office at the bank in Buckhead and ate lunch at his desk. He did not think about where Mary was or what she was doing. He had the house. He had the car. He had the children. He had structured everything to make sure she had nothing. And in his mind, she did have nothing. A woman with $300 and a recipe book was not a threat. He would be wrong about that, but not yet. Pastor Yvonne Claiborne had been watching Mary for 6 weeks. She was 67 years old. She had run Greater Hope Baptist Church on Jonesboro Road in southeast Atlanta for 22 years. She knew everyone in the congregation, and she knew when someone new was using her building, and she knew why. Mary had started renting the church's commercial kitchen in her 5th week of selling. Denise had made the introduction. The church had a certified kitchen in the basement that it rented to small vendors and caterers for $15 an hour. Mary booked 4 hours every Monday and Wednesday and cooked enough for 3 markets. Pastor Yvonne did not say anything to Mary for the first 6 weeks. She came downstairs once or twice during Mary's cooking hours. She stood in the doorway. She watched. She smelled whatever was coming off that stove. She went back upstairs. On a Thursday evening, at the end of the 6th week, Pastor Yvonne came downstairs after Mary had finished cleaning the kitchen. She sat down at the prep table. She asked Mary to sit. Mary sat. "I have been smelling your food for 6 weeks," Pastor Yvonne said. "I have been watching you carry those pots in here at 4 in the morning. I have been watching you clean this kitchen better than anyone who has ever rented it." She paused. "What are you doing, and who are you doing it for?" Mary told her. Short sentences, no drama, no self-pity. She told her about the divorce. She told her about the $300. She told her about the recipe book and the markets and the bus routes and the rolling cart. Pastor Yvonne listened to all of it. Then she told Mary something. Her husband, Raymond Claiborne, had died 11 years ago. 61 years old. Heart attack on a Sunday morning before service. Raymond had been a deacon and a pitmaster. He owned a food truck, green and white. He parked it behind the church every Sunday after service and sold barbecue plates for $5 each, ribs and coleslaw and cornbread. The line went around the building. When Raymond died, Yvonne could not bring herself to sell the truck. She parked it behind the fellowship hall and covered it with a tarp. 11 years. The engine had not turned over in 7. The paint was peeling. 2 of the tires were flat. The gas line to the stove inside needed replacing. The refrigeration unit had stopped working years ago. Nobody wanted it. Nobody used it. Every year, Yvonne told herself she would figure out what to do with it. Every year, she did not. "Come with me," she said. She walked Mary around the back of the church to the gravel lot behind the fellowship hall. She pulled the tarp back. Green paint faded and chipping. Flat tires on the passenger side. Dust on every window. A dent in the rear bumper. Mary opened the side door and stepped inside. 2 gas burners. 1 prep counter. A small refrigerator that did not run. A serving window with a metal shutter that stuck halfway open. Mary stood inside that truck for a while. She put her hands on the counter. She looked at the burners and the window and the space where plates would be handed out. She could see it. For the first time since the sofa on Glenwood Avenue, she could see what the next thing looked like. "I am not giving this to you," Pastor Yvonne said. "Raymond built this and I will not give it away. But I will rent it to you for $100 a month. You fix it yourself. If it runs and your business holds for 6 months, I will sell it to you at what Raymond paid for it in 2008, $4,500. Mary looked at her. "I do not have money to fix it." "You have a church full of people who know how to fix things," Yvonne said. "Ask." Terrence Gaines, 44 years old, mechanic, member of Greater Hope for 19 years. He looked at the engine on a Saturday morning and told Mary the fuel pump needed replacing and the battery was dead and the alternator was corroded. Parts would cost around $350. He would do the labor for free because Pastor Yvonne asked, and because Terrence believed if a woman was willing to pull a cart onto a bus at 5 in the morning, she deserved a truck that started. Delonda Harris, 38 years old, worked at an auto body shop in College Park. She offered to sand down and repaint the truck in exchange for 2 months of free meals. Mary agreed. The parts cost $347. Mary paid for them with 5 weeks of market earnings. Terrence worked 3 Saturdays in a row. Delonda came after her shifts on weekday evenings. 3 weeks. The engine turned over. The tires were replaced. The gas line was reconnected. The paint was new, deep brown with gold lettering on the side. Mary painted the name herself. She used a stencil she cut from cardboard and gold paint she bought for $6 at the hardware store on Jonesboro Road. Opal's Table, her grandmother's name. On a truck that ran, in a parking lot behind a church in southeast Atlanta, Mary stood in front of it for a few minutes after the last coat dried. She did not say anything. She looked at the name, and she looked at the serving window, and she looked at the road beyond the parking lot that went in every direction. She reached into her bag and took out the photograph. Opal May Johnson, 1989, white apron. Smiling like she knew something nobody else knew yet, Mary taped it to the wall inside the truck next to the serving window. Then she went inside and turned the burners on. The first month on the road, Mary parked on Wells Street in the industrial corridor south of Turner Field. Lunchtime, 11:30 to 1:30. Warehouse workers and truck drivers and construction crews from the site 2 blocks over. She sold plates for $7 each. Smothered chicken over rice, red beans, fried catfish on Fridays. Week 1, she sold 32 plates, $96 after cost of ingredients, minus $12 in gas for the truck, minus the $100 monthly rental split across 30 days, minus the permit fees, amortized weekly. Net profit for the first week, $41 a day on the days she worked. Not enough for rent, not enough for a deposit, enough to keep the truck running and the stove lit. Week 2, she sold 37 plates. Week 3, 41. The construction crew started showing up in groups. A foreman named Willis came every day at 11:45. He did not say much. He ordered the same thing. Smothered chicken, extra rice, he told his crew. His crew told the crew on the next site over. By the end of the first month, Mary was selling 40 plates a day at $7 each, $280 in daily revenue. Cost per plate was $3.50. Ingredients bought in bulk from the restaurant supply on Metropolitan Parkway. Chicken thighs, rice in 25-pound bags, cooking oil, spices, foil containers. Every night Mary sat at the small table in Denise's apartment and wrote in a notebook. Revenue on the left side. Costs on the right. Notes at the bottom. Catfish sells out first on Fridays. Red beans move slower on Wednesdays. Add corn muffins next week. Month 2, she added a second stop. Downtown, Peachtree and Andrew Young International Boulevard. 5 to 8 p.m. The after-work crowd. Office workers walking to the parking decks. Nurses coming off shift at Grady. The evening location doubled her customer base. Revenue climbed to $150 a day after costs. Still not enough for a lease, but closer. Month 3, the phone started ringing. Customers calling to ask where she would be parked. You on 5th today. You coming to Wells Street this week. Mary did not have a website. She did not have a marketing plan. She had a phone number written on the side of the truck and 40 plates that sold out every day. Denise set up a Facebook page one Sunday afternoon. Opal's Table. One photograph of the truck, the menu. The daily location posted every morning at 5 a.m. 2 weeks later, the page had 400 followers. 4 weeks later, 1,200. People shared it. People tagged friends. People posted photographs of their plates and wrote things underneath like "Best soul food in Atlanta" and "This reminds me of home." $200 a day. Consistent. 6 days a week. $1,200 a week before taxes. Mary kept the notebook. She did not miss a single night of writing in it. She tracked every dollar in and every dollar out the way her grandmother used to track every recipe. Carefully, in ink, without shortcuts. Charlene stopped by the truck on a Thursday in the second month. She brought water bottles and helped wipe down the counter after the lunch rush. She asked how business was going. Mary told her. Charlene smiled and said she was proud of her. Mary called Elijah and Naomi every evening at 7:30. The custody arrangement allowed 2 afternoon visits per week and every other weekend. Mary brought food to every visit. She packed it in foil containers and carried it in a bag on the bus to Andre's house on Collier Road, where she was no longer allowed inside. She handed the bag to Elijah at the door. She sat on the porch steps with both children and watched them eat. Naomi said the same thing every time. "This is the best food in the world, Mom." Mary did not say anything. She smiled. One evening, Elijah said something else. He said it quietly between bites. Dad asked why you are selling food on the street. Mary looked at him. "What did you tell him?" "I told him it was good." Elijah said. Andre knew. He had been asking the children questions. Where does she park? How many customers? Is anyone helping her? The questions sounded casual. They were not casual. Andre was keeping track. Mary did not know that yet. She would find out soon. 4 months after the divorce, Mary filed a motion for joint custody of Elijah and Naomi. Her lawyer, Simone Achebe, prepared the filing. Simone was 31 years old. 3rd year at Atlanta Legal Aid. Family law. She had handled 47 custody cases. She had not lost one where the mother could demonstrate stable income and housing. She had also never gone up against Glenn Forsyth. Forsyth filed Andre's response within 9 days. The response was 41 pages long. The custody review hearing was held at the Fulton County Superior Court on Pryor Street on a Tuesday morning in August. Judge Eleanor Maynard presiding. Mary sat on one side of the courtroom. Andre sat on the other. They did not look at each other. Forsyth went first. He presented screenshots of the Opal's Table Facebook page. He presented photographs of the food truck parked on Wells Street. He presented Mary's self-reported income from 3 months of operation and noted that it fluctuated from week to week. He presented the fact that Mary had been living on a friend's sofa for the first 2 months following the divorce and had only recently secured independent housing. He framed every piece of evidence the same way. Instability. A woman who could not hold consistent income. A woman without a permanent address for the first 60 days. A woman running what he called an informal street food operation rather than a real business. This is not a stable environment for children, Forsyth said. He did not mention that Mary had a food handler's permit. He did not mention the commercial kitchen certification. He did not mention the truck rental agreement or the vendor license or the tax filings Simone had prepared. He mentioned none of those things because mentioning them would make Mary look like what she was, a business owner. Simone went second. She was younger than Forsyth by 22 years. She did not have his suits or his voice or his reputation in that courtroom. She had a folder. Inside the folder, 3 months of self-employment tax filings showing consistent upward revenue, a signed lease for a studio apartment on Memorial Drive, $850 a month, Mary's name on it, a food handler's permit from Fulton County, a commercial kitchen rental agreement with Greater Hope Baptist Church, a truck lease agreement with Pastor Yvonne Claiborne, 14 letters from regular customers, each one handwritten, each one saying the same thing in different words. This woman works hard. This woman feeds people. This woman shows up. And 1 letter from Pastor Yvonne Claiborne, 22 years running a church in southeast Atlanta, stating that Mary had rented the kitchen for 4 months without missing a single payment, stating that Mary was a responsible tenant and a person of character, stating that the community trusted her with their food and with their children. Judge Maynard read through everything. She looked at Forsyth. She looked at Simone. She looked at Mary. She did not rule. She continued the case 60 days. She said she wanted to see sustained income and confirmed housing stability before making a custody determination. She said both parents would maintain the current arrangement during the continuance. She closed the folder and called the next case. Mary walked out of the courtroom and stood in the parking lot on Pryor Street. 60 days. She needed to hold $200 a day for 60 days without a gap. She needed to keep the apartment. She needed to file 2 more months of clean tax records. She needed to not miss a single payment on anything. She looked at her phone. 1 message from Naomi. "Are you coming to get us, Mom?" Day 1 through 20. Mary worked 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. She cooked in the church kitchen, starting at 4 in the morning. She drove the truck to Wells Street for lunch. She drove downtown for dinner. She added 2 new dishes from the recipe book. Opal's fried okra, Opal's peach cobbler. Both sold out the first day. Revenue climbed to $220 a day, then $240, day 25. Mary signed a lease renewal on the studio apartment, confirmed address through the end of the year. She mailed a copy to Simone. Day 30. She filed her 4th month of self-employment taxes. Gross revenue up 11% from the month before. Day 38. A woman walked up to the serving window on Peachtree Street at 6:15 in the evening. She was 34 years old, short hair, press badge clipped to her jacket. She ordered 1 plate. Smothered chicken. She ate standing on the sidewalk 10 feet from the truck. She finished. She came back. "How long have you been doing this?" she said. Mary told her. Short sentences. No drama. The woman nodded. She said her name was Keisha Dawson. She worked at the local news affiliate on 14th Street. She was producing a series on small business owners in Black communities across Atlanta. "Can I feature you?" she said. Mary looked at her. "I need to think about it." "Take your time," Keisha said. Mary called Denise that night from the studio apartment. She sat on the floor next to the mattress with the phone on speaker and the recipe book open on the counter across the room. "A reporter wants to do a piece on me," Mary said. Denise was quiet for a moment. "What would Opal say?" Denise said. Mary looked at the recipe book across the room. She did not answer right away. She called Keisha the next morning. Charlene Colvin called Mary every week. She had been calling since 2 months after the divorce. She was 33 years old. Andre's younger sister. She lived in a townhouse in Smyrna that she had bought 3 years ago with Andre as the co-signer on the mortgage. When the divorce happened, Charlene reached out to Mary. She said she did not agree with what Andre did. She said family was family regardless of legal papers. She said she wanted to help however she could. She came to the truck. She helped wipe down the counter after lunch. She brought paper towels and napkins from the wholesale club because she had a membership and Mary did not. She asked how the hearing went. She asked if Mary was doing okay. She asked about the children. Mary answered every question honestly, because Charlene was family, because Charlene had shown up when nobody else from Andre's side had, because there was no reason not to trust her. The week Keisha Dawson came to the truck, Charlene called Mary on a Wednesday evening. The conversation was normal. How is business? How are the kids? Then Charlene asked a question she had not asked before. Someone told me a reporter came by the truck. What is that about? Mary told her. A local news piece, small business owners. Keisha wanted to film at the truck and do a short interview. Nothing about the divorce, just the food. Just the story of how she started. Charlene listened. She said that sounded wonderful. She said she was proud of Mary. She said she hoped it would bring more customers. Charlene sent the same information to Andre 14 minutes later. The message was a text. It included what Mary had told her, the reporter's name, the station, the topic of the series, the timeline for filming. Charlene typed it out on her phone while sitting in her car in the parking lot of a grocery store in Smyrna and sent it to her brother, who was sitting in the house on Collier Road that used to belong to his wife. This was not the first message. Charlene had been sending updates to Andre since the beginning, when Mary bought the truck, when she started at the markets, when she hired the mechanic from the church, when she filed for joint custody. Every piece of information Mary shared with the woman she believed was her ally went directly to the man who had taken everything from her. Charlene was not cruel. She was not vindictive. She did not enjoy what she was doing. She was in debt. The townhouse in Smyrna carried a mortgage of $187,000. Andre was the co-signer. 6 months before the divorce, he had reminded Charlene of that fact during a phone call that lasted less than 4 minutes. He did not threaten. He did not raise his voice. He told her he expected her to keep him informed about Mary's situation and that if she chose not to, he would remove himself from the mortgage agreement. Without Andre's name on the loan, Charlene's credit score would not support the mortgage on its own. She would lose the townhouse. She had calculated this already. She had run the numbers the same night Andre called. She knew exactly what would happen. So she called Mary every week. She asked careful questions. She reported back. She chose her own house over her conscience. That was the math she did. Whether it was the right math is a question only Charlene could answer, and she had not answered it yet. Mary did not know. She would not find out for a while. But the information was already moving. Andre had the reporter's name. He had the timeline, and he had Glenn Forsythe on speed dial. Andre called Mary on a Tuesday evening. She was in the truck on Peachtree Street. The dinner rush had just ended. She saw his name on the screen and stood there for a moment with the phone in her hand and the smell of the kitchen still thick in the air around her. She picked up. He used her name softly. The way he used to when he wanted something to sound like it was her idea. He said the divorce was a private matter. He said going on television with their personal business would hurt the children. He said Elijah was already asking questions at school. He said Naomi had been quiet lately. He said Mary needed to think about what was best for them. Mary listened to every word. She did not interrupt. She let him finish. I am not telling our story, Andre, she said. I am building mine. She hung up. She put the phone on the counter, next to the stove. She stood there for a few seconds. Then she started cleaning up for the night. Andre called Forsythe within the hour. Forsythe drafted a cease and desist letter addressed to Keisha Dawson at the news affiliate on 14th Street. The letter stated that any broadcast segment referencing Andre Colvin or the details of his divorce proceedings would be considered defamatory and would result in legal action. Forsyth sent it by certified mail and by email on the same day. This was Andre's mistake, the one that would cost him everything he was trying to protect. Keisha received the letter on a Thursday morning. She read it. She took it to her executive producer. The executive producer read it. He sat back in his chair and looked at Keisha. The original segment was supposed to be 2 minutes. A feel-good local piece about a woman and a food truck. Human interest. End of the 6 o'clock broadcast. The kind of story people watch and forget by dinner. The cease and desist changed that. A man sending a legal threat to a news station to stop a story about his ex-wife selling plates of food from a truck. The executive producer saw something bigger. Not a food story. A power story. A woman who lost everything rebuilding in public while the man who took it tried to shut her down from behind a lawyer's desk. The segment moved from 2 minutes to 8. From the 6 o'clock local to prime time. From a single camera visit to a 3-day shoot. Andre had turned a food truck story into a story about control. The exact thing he did not want anyone to see. At the same time, Forsyth filed a supplemental brief with Judge Maynard's court. The filing argued that Mary was actively seeking media attention rather than focusing on the stability of her children. Forsyth attached screenshots of the Facebook page. 1,200 followers. He attached Keisha's initial inquiry email to Mary. He framed the television appearance as evidence of misplaced priorities. The brief landed on the judge's desk 11 days before the 60-day hearing. The Fong Sud had not yet aired. The court did not know what the segment would contain. Neither did Andre. Neither did Mary. Keisha Dawson and a 2-person crew arrived at the church kitchen on Jonesboro Road at 4:15 in the morning. Mary was already inside. The stove was on. The recipe book was open on the counter to page 47. Opal's smothered chicken. Keisha did not direct anything. She told the cameraman to shoot what he saw. Mary cooked the way she cooked every morning. She did not look at the camera. She did not perform. She measured and stirred and tasted and adjusted the way Opal had taught her to do it 30 years ago in the kitchen on Delary Street. They followed her to the truck. They filmed her driving to Wells Street. They filmed the setup, the serving window opening, the first customers walking up at 11:30, the line that stretched past the corner by noon. Keisha interviewed Mary inside the truck between the lunch and dinner shifts. Mary sat on the prep stool with her hands in her lap. She told Keisha she started with $300 and a folding table and a recipe book her grandmother gave her when she left New Orleans. She did not say Andre's name. She did not describe the divorce. She did not say what was taken from her or how it was done. "I lost everything I thought I had," Mary said. "Then I found everything I actually needed." The camera moved to the recipe book. Brown leather cover, blue ink, Opal's handwriting, notes in the margins, "Do not rush the roux." The photograph of Opal taped to the wall next to the serving window. White apron, flour on her hands, smiling. Keisha interviewed 3 customers. The woman from the very first Saturday at East Atlanta Village was one of them, mid-50s, church hat. She looked at the camera and said what she had said to Mary 8 months ago. "This food reminds me of home. I do not know how she does it." The segment aired on a Thursday evening. Prime time, 8 minutes. The title card read Opal's Table, One Woman, $300, and a Recipe Book. Within 48 hours, the Facebook page went from 1,200 followers to 23,000. The line at the truck doubled. 3 other stations contacted Keisha requesting permission to use the footage. The clip was shared across social media. 200,000 views in the first week. People who had never heard of Opal's Table shared the segment with a sentence underneath. "You need to watch this." People who had eaten at the truck shared it with a different sentence. "I knew this food was special. Now you know why." You already know who was watching. That evening, after the last customer left, Mary closed the serving window. She turned off the burners. She stood alone inside the truck. The recipe book was open on the counter. The photograph of Opal was on the wall beside her. The truck smelled like smoked paprika and brown butter and something sweet underneath. Mary stood there for a while. She did not say anything. She closed the book. She turned off the lights. Andre was sitting in the living room of the house on Collier Road when the segment started. The television was on. He was not watching it. He was reading something on his phone. Then he heard the name, Opal's Table. He looked up. He saw the truck. Brown paint, gold lettering, a serving window with a line of people standing in front of it. He saw Mary inside the truck, standing at the stove, wearing the same apron she had worn in his kitchen for 12 years, tilting her head the same way she always did when she tasted something, moving her hands the same way every single day for 12 years in a kitchen he walked through without stopping. He saw the recipe book, the brown leather cover. He recognized it. It had sat on the shelf above the microwave in his kitchen for the entire length of their marriage. He had never opened it. Not once in 12 years. He did not know what was inside. He saw the photograph of Opal on the wall. He did not recognize the woman in it. He had lived in the same house as that photograph for 12 years, and he had never asked who it was. He heard a customer say, "This food reminds me of home." He heard Mary say, "I lost everything I thought I had. Then I found everything I actually needed." He saw the number on the screen, $300. That was what Forsyth had told him was left in the old checking account. Not worth pursuing, Forsyth had said. $300 is not material, Andre had agreed. $300 was nothing. $300 was a food truck with 23,000 followers and a line around the block and a news segment that 200,000 people had already watched. Andre picked up the remote. He turned the television off. He sat in the living room of the house he had taken from his wife and looked at the dark screen. He had taken the house. He had taken the car. He had taken custody of both children. He had spent 14 months restructuring every asset so her name appeared on nothing. He had left her with $300 and a recipe book because those were the two things his lawyers said were not worth the paperwork. The recipe book was on television. The $300 had built something 23,000 people were following. The woman he had removed from every document was standing in front of a camera, telling the city of Atlanta that she had found everything she needed. And the thing she found was the thing that had been in his house for 12 years. On his shelf, in his kitchen, right in front of him. He did not see it then. He saw it now. It was too late. Andre picked up his phone. He called Forsyth. "Can we use this against her in court?" he said. The 60-day hearing was held on a Wednesday morning in October at Fulton County Superior Court. Judge Eleanor Maynard presiding. Same courtroom. Same two tables. Mary on the left. Andre on the right. Forsyth went first. He had prepared a new argument built on top of the old one. He presented the television segment as Exhibit A. He presented screenshots of the Facebook page showing 23,000 followers. He presented the cease and desist letter his own office had sent. He framed the entire sequence as evidence that Mary had chosen public attention over parental responsibility. The respondent has prioritized media exposure and social media growth over demonstrating the kind of stable private environment this court requested 60 days ago, Forsyth said. He did not mention that the cease and desist was what escalated the segment from 2 minutes to 8. He did not mention that Mary had not sought the reporter out. He did not mention that his own legal action had turned a small local story into something 200,000 people watched. Simone went second. She laid out 5 months of self-employment tax records, revenue increasing every month. She presented the lease renewal for the studio apartment on Memorial Drive. She presented a report from the court-appointed social worker who had visited Mary's home twice during the 60-day period and found it clean and suitable and stable. She presented 23 letters from community members, customers, Pastor Yvonne, Denise, Terrence, Delonda, people who knew Mary and what she had built and how she had built it. Then Simone addressed the television segment directly. She told the court that Keisha Dawson had approached Mary as a customer first and as a journalist second, that Mary had not contacted the station, that Mary had not mentioned Andre or the divorce on camera, that the only party who had introduced legal conflict into the media coverage was Andre himself through the cease and desist. The petitioner did not seek attention, Simone said. She sold plates of food. Attention found her. Judge Maynard looked at the filings. She looked at both tables. She asked if either party had additional witnesses. Forsyth said no. Simone said yes. The courtroom door opened. Charlene Colvin walked in. Andre turned in his chair. He looked at his sister. Charlene did not look at him. She walked to the front of the courtroom and took the witness stand. Simone asked Charlene to state her relationship to both parties. Charlene said she was Andre's sister. She said she had been in contact with Mary since 2 months after the divorce. Simone asked Charlene why she had contacted Mary. Charlene said she wanted to help. She said she believed what Andre did was wrong. Simone asked Charlene if she had communicated information about Mary to Andre during that time. Charlene was quiet for a moment. Then she said yes. She said Andre had asked her to monitor Mary's activities and report back. She said she had done so for approximately 5 months. She said the information she provided included details about the food truck business, the custody filing the reporter, and the timeline for the television segment. Simone asked why Charlene had agreed to do this. Charlene said Andre was the co-signer on her mortgage. She said he told her that if she did not cooperate, he would remove himself from the loan. She said she could not afford the mortgage on her own. Simone asked what changed. Charlene said Andre removed himself from the mortgage anyway, 6 weeks ago, because she had not forwarded information about the television segment fast enough. Charlene said she lost the townhouse in Smyrna. The bank began foreclosure proceedings 11 days after Andre withdrew his name. Simone presented printed text messages between Charlene and Andre. 47 messages over 5 months. Dates, times, content. Each one sent within minutes of a conversation Charlene had with Mary. Each one containing information Mary had shared in confidence. Judge Maynard read through the messages. She read them slowly. She looked at Andre. She looked at Forsyth. She closed the folder. The court finds that the father engaged in a pattern of surveillance and interference through a third party that is inconsistent with the best interests of the children, she said. Primary custody is hereby transferred to the mother, effective immediately. The father retains visitation rights on a schedule to be determined by this court within 14 days. She called the next case. Mary walked out of the courtroom. She stood on the steps outside. She took out her phone. She called Elijah. "You are coming home." The court filing became public record the following week. Charlene's text messages were referenced in the custody determination. The pattern of surveillance was described in legal language that anyone who read it could understand. Andre Colvin had used his sister to spy on his ex-wife during an active custody proceeding. 2 business partners at the bank read the filing. Andre had been managing commercial loan portfolios for clients who trusted him with their money and their information. Trust was the product. The filing described a man who had used personal leverage to coerce a family member into conducting surveillance. The partners did not call Andre to discuss it. They reassigned his accounts. He lost 2 commercial contracts worth a combined $370,000 in fees within the month. Not because anyone punished him, because nobody wanted to work with him anymore. The woman Andre had been seeing left in November. Her name was Tanya. She was 29 years old. She worked in marketing at a firm downtown. She had started seeing Andre 4 months before the divorce papers were served. She had never met Mary. She had never been to the house on Collier Road while Mary lived there. She knew Andre as a man with a house and a title and a reputation. When the court filing went public, the house was still there, but the title and the reputation were not. Tanya stopped returning his calls on a Tuesday. She did not explain. She did not need to. She had been there for what Andre represented. What he represented was gone. Forsyth sent the final invoice. $47,000. 14 months of legal strategy. The filing fees. The custody hearings. The cease and desist. The supplemental briefs. The hours billed at $425 each. Andre had paid $47,000 to take everything from a woman who had $300. The woman with $300 got her children back. The man with $47,000 in legal bills sat in a 1-bedroom apartment in Kennesaw with a court record that followed his name. Andre called Mary once from that apartment. A Sunday evening in December. Mary was in the kitchen of the studio on Memorial Drive. She saw his name on the screen. She put the phone face down on the counter. She let it ring until it stopped. Andre called Elijah the next day. Elijah picked up. Andre said, "I miss you, son." Elijah was quiet for a few seconds. "Mom is cooking tonight," he said. "I have to go." He hung up, not angry, not cold, just somewhere else now, living a life that had moved on without the man who thought he controlled where it went. Andre sat in that apartment, one bedroom, a kitchen he did not use. 12 years of building something he was certain he controlled. He took the house. He lost the house to mortgage payments he could no longer cover. He took the car. The car sat in a parking lot he could not afford to maintain. He took the children. The children chose to leave. He spent 14 months making sure Mary had nothing. He left her with $300 and a recipe book. And the $300 built a truck, and the recipe book built a name. And the name built a line around the block. And the line built a life that 23,000 people followed, and a courtroom looked at and said, "This is the parent these children belong with." He had built exactly what he deserved. The first evening Elijah and Naomi stayed at the apartment on Memorial Drive was a Thursday in late October. Mary had moved a second mattress into the bedroom that morning. She put fresh sheets on it. She set the small table by the kitchen window with 3 plates, 3 glasses, 3 forks. She opened the recipe book to page 1, red beans and rice. The first recipe Opal ever wrote down, the one with the note in the margin that said, "This one is for when someone comes home." Mary cooked it the way Opal taught her. Slowly, without rushing, she let the fire do its work. On the wall above the stove she had hung the photograph, framed now. Plain wood, clean glass. Opal May Johnson, 1989. White apron, flour on her hands, smiling like she knew something nobody else knew yet. Naomi came into the kitchen first. She looked at the photograph on the wall. "Who is that?" she said. "That is the woman who taught me everything I know," Mary said. They sat down. 3 people at a small table in a studio apartment on Memorial Drive. Mary put the food on their plates. Elijah ate without talking. Naomi took a bite. She looked up at her mother. "This is the best food in the world, Mom." The same words, the same voice. A different place. Not the porch steps of a house she was no longer allowed inside. Not a visit with a time limit. Home. Mary looked at her children. She looked at the photograph on the wall. She looked at the recipe book open on the counter. She could smell it. Smoked paprika and brown butter and something sweet underneath. You feed people, and you look them in the eye. That is how you tell someone they matter. Mary did not say anything. She watched her children eat. Andre took the house. He took the car. He took the children. He took 12 years of Mary's work and made it disappear from every document he could find. He left her with $300 and a recipe book. He thought he left her with nothing. He left her with everything. Because the one thing Andre never understood about Mary, the one thing he could not take because he could not see it, was where she came from. A kitchen on Delary Street. A grandmother who fed anyone who was hungry and never asked for money. A recipe book with 214 pages of careful handwriting and notes in the margins that said things like, "Do not rush, and let the fire do its work, and this one is for when someone comes home." He had every advantage. He had lawyers and 14 months, and every document restructured in his name. And he still missed the thing that mattered. You cannot take what you cannot name on a document, and you cannot buy back what you never learned to value. Some people spend their whole lives building things they can put their name on. Mary inherited something that could not be filed or transferred or locked in a trust. A recipe, a wooden spoon. A photograph of a woman in a white apron who bottled her whole life into a book and trusted that the right person would carry it forward. The people who only see what something is worth on paper will always miss what actually matters. And by the time they realize it, it is already too late. Andre came back after the divorce and tried to use the courts to take Opal's table from Mary the same way he took the house. He lost. He lost the contracts. He lost the woman he left Mary for. He lost his reputation. He lost everything he spent 12 years building. Here is the question. If someone spent 14 months planning to take everything from you and then watched you rebuild from $300 while they lost it all, would you let them back into your life? Or would you let them sit with what they built? This one is going to divide the room. Leave your answer below. Subscribe. I will see you in the next one. This story is a work of fiction. The names, characters, locations, and events are entirely imagined. No real person is depicted or referenced. However, the emotions and the legal realities in this story are inspired by patterns that affect real families across America every single year. Coercive control in marriage, hidden asset restructuring during divorce proceedings, and custody battles shaped by financial inequality are not fiction. They happen every day in courtrooms in every state. I wrote this story because I grew up watching women in my family cook for everyone and receive credit from no one. The kitchen was where love happened in my household. It was where problems got solved and where people got fed and where nobody ever thought to put any of it on a balance sheet. I wanted to write a story where the kitchen won, where the thing nobody counted was the thing that counted the most. If you or someone you know is going through a divorce, please consult a family law attorney. Understanding your rights to marital property, custody, and financial protection is not optional. It is survival. Organizations like the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 and womenslaw.org offer free legal resources and support for anyone navigating these situations. Every plate Mary served was a conversation. Every recipe was a letter from her grandmother. Some things cannot be taken because they were never on paper to begin with. Thank you for watching.